And so it begins. And so it begins. The coronavirus clampdowns, the vaccine mandates are beginning to have a massive effect on America, starting with, if you won't take the shot, maybe you won't be able to go to work. Carl Bonak, a weatherman in Michigan who worked for 3 decades, was fired, left his job because he wouldn't take the vaccine. He would not take the coronavirus vaccine. That's the discussion of today's Bold and Blunt. Whether America, whether the world still values freedom over perceived safety and security. I'm Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. And I want to give a quick shout out to Edify, EDIFI, online, the newest platform that's hosting my Bold and Blunt podcast. It's a platform for the believers of the world, the faith-based. It's a platform you can go to when you want to hear podcasts that uplift and motivate based on biblical teachings. And Bold and Blunt is now among its offerings. So please go check out Edify. And don't forget, check out WashingtonTimes.com. Find my name, Cheryl Chumley, hyperlinked on the website. Click on it, scroll down to the bottom of one of my commentaries, and you will find some easy and quick ways to sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter at the Washington Times, delivered straight into your email box Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, including my twice weekly Tuesdays and Thursdays podcasts. I have great guests on these podcasts. And if you want to go a little bit further than that, just go to WashingtonTimes.com/Cheryl, type in your info, and you can get a year's subscription to all the digital platform of the Washington Times has to offer: news, commentaries, all the great podcasts for a 50% discount. You can't beat that deal. Really, you can't beat that deal. And with Christmas coming, nothing says I love you like a year's subscription to the digital platform of the Washington Times. That is the gift that keeps on giving all year long. So, the vaccine mandates. Carl Bonak, a weatherman out in Michigan, employed there for 33 years. 33 years on this station. Now, no longer. Why? He writes on Facebook, "I am sad, but to borrow a quote from a famous ball player, I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth because I had a dream. An American dream, right? I had a dream as a kid to be a weatherman." And let me sidestep just for a minute. Isn't that what America is supposed to be about? Not just liberty, not just individual rights coming from God, not government, but dreams. Dreams where no matter where you're raised, no matter what your circumstances in life, rich, poor, doesn't matter. In this country, you work hard and you can become what you want. Isn't that how it goes? Isn't that how it's supposed to go? Not for Carl Bonak. He had a dream and he lived it for 33 years, and that dream abruptly came to an end because he refused to take a vaccine that's being mandated by the federal government. Mandated. A vaccine that is questionable in terms of long-term safety, that really doesn't have any more effectiveness to boast about than natural immunity. But it's a vaccine that's been made by Big Pharma, and because government is in bed with Big Pharma, and Anthony Fauci is in cahoots with Big Pharma and has a huge platform in this administration, the mandates are coming to everybody in America. Get the shot or stay home. Don't work. Carl Bonak chose door number 2, stay home. I'm not getting the shot. He continues on Facebook, "I am leaving TV6 because the station's corporate owner, Gray Television, has mandated vaccination against COVID-19 for anyone entering a property owned by the company. Since I chose not to take one of the shots, I was fired. Many of you have taken one of these injections, and that is absolutely your right. It is also my right to choose the medical options I feel are right for me. I have authority over my body. Let me sidestep again. Isn't that just common sense? You know, if you take the vaccine, what difference does it make to you if I don't? Isn't the vaccine supposed to protect you against getting the coronavirus? So if it's doing its job, what difference does it make if I take one or not? This trend in America to dictate to your neighbors how they have to behave, what they have to do in order to make you feel better, this trend has to stop. Good people are losing jobs because of this ridiculous collectivist mentality that is stealing into America and robbing us of our God-given rights to choose, robbing us of our individualism. And don't think for 1 minute that this is by accident. This is by design of the far left, the collectivists, not just in America's political systems, not just in America's government, not just the socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, not just the socialists like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, who pretend they're Democrats, but by the collectivists at the global level, at the United Nations, at the World Economic Forum. This is the Great Reset. This is the Build Back Better. This is the fourth industrial revolution. This, if you had put a phrase to it a few years ago, is the New World Order, the One World Order. This is the moment in time that the collectivists at the global level have deemed imperative to move quickly to bring about their communist ideas onto a largely unaware world. In America, America has always been the big wall, right? America, land of the free, home of the brave. America, land of the Judeo-Christian principle, the God-given, where government knew its proper role and stayed in it. America has always been the wall to that collectivist communist dream. But under Joe Biden, feckless, bumbling, ineffective, mentally deranged Joe Biden, the time is now for the collectivists to pounce. You got Joe Biden leading America down a path of who knows where, and you've got the coronavirus that is hyping fears among the population, so they are only all too ready to obey. They are only all too ready to trade individual liberties for this false sense of safety and security that the government falsely promises it can deliver. The government is lying to you. Anthony Fauci is lying to you. The collectivists have brought this about by design. A situation where the coronavirus can be used for political means to instill fear, to crumble the Constitution of America, to cripple America from within, so their long lusted for dreams of global dominance can take shape. And the corporations are playing along with this. At the World Economic Forum level, the corporations in America are only too willingly entering these backdoor deals with the WEF and the other players at the global level because they think in the end that they're going to come out the winners. They think in the end, if they don't play along, that they're going to lose all that they worked for, that their corporations are going to be left out in the cold. It's either play or die is how some in the corporate world see it. This woke corporate culture is coming because some of these executives truly are far left believers, but it's also coming because some of these executives think if they don't jump in the game, they're going to be left out. They're going to be left in the dark. They're going to be left at the door, and they're not going to be able to function and make money like they used to, because the rules of capitalism would have shifted and changed. And so instead of caring about your shareholders and making money for your shareholders, you have to care about your stakeholders and make money for your stakeholders, which in the definition of this new world order, this new World Economic Forum order, it means anybody and everybody in your surrounding community. It means those with the loudest voices. It means those who are the most woke. It means the Black Lives Matter and Antifa types telling you, as a business owner, how you are supposed to operate. So there are some in the business world who jump into this wokeness fully believing in this far leftist ideology, but there are others in the corporate world who are fearful that if they don't play, that they're going to be left behind. And because the new capitalistic system will be one of stakeholders, not shareholders, they won't be able to make money as they used to. So back to Carl Bonak, because he's the guy who's been caught up in what's going on with this globalist World Economic Forum, new definition of capitalism, coronavirus fearful situation that the left has strategized and brought into being. He is the face of what's happening in America and what is going to happen to many workers in America if we don't put our foot down, our collective foot down right now and put a stop to it. I am leaving TV6 because the station's corporate owner has mandated vaccination against COVID-19, he wrote. I have decided against the vaccine option, first and foremost, because the manufacturers of these injections have absolutely no liability if injury or death occurs after the shot. I asked myself, he continues to write on Facebook, would I buy brakes for my vehicle if the brake company had no liability, if the brakes failed? No. So I will certainly not allow a medicine in my body from a company that does not stand behind its product. Let me sidestep again. That's it, right? This isn't about health and safety so much as it's about personal choice. And that used to be a given. That used to be just a commonly accepted principle in America. It's your body, you can do what you want. The left understands that when it comes to killing babies, but yet this same left can't understand that when it comes to deciding whether you want to put a chemical in your body that's been largely untested for long-term safety. And if something does go wrong, you as an individual have no recourse to sue, not even for your medical bills. That's crazy. So put the politics aside here on this vaccine mandate and realize that this is the issue of our time. Fight now or forever lose your freedom. That's how it's going to go. That's how it's going to fall out, because it's not just one individual refusing to take a shot. It's not just Carl Bonak by himself. It's the heavy breathing of the global government down the backs of America, through the feckless, weak Joe Biden White House, into the individual homes of Americans who are now faced with the choice. Should I just shut up and take this vaccine so that I can go to work, so that I can travel freely, so that I can send my kids to school, so that I can go on an airplane or a public mode of transportation? Or should I do like Carl Bonak and fight and get fired? These are tough choices, and what's more, these are choices that no American should ever have had to have faced. Let me say that again. These are tough choices that no American in free America society should ever have had to have faced, and yet here we are. This is something that we looked overseas aghast at and thought in previous years, in past years, in pre-coronavirus years, and thought, wow, that could never happen here. Well, guess what? It is. And guess what else? Those people overseas are now looking at America and thinking, wow, what happened in America? My guest today, Robert Oulds, director of the Bruges Group, on the line from London, is going to give some insights into how the freedom scales are tipping overseas, but also offer some overseas commentary on how London, how the United Kingdom is viewing America right now during all this coronavirus madness. But first, a word from my sponsor, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Explore the ancient Jewish roots of Christianity with podcast host Yael Eckstein, President and CEO of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Join Yael from the Holy Land as she shares spiritual insights from the Torah specifically for Christians. This podcast will take you on a unique journey through the Bible that will deepen your connection with Israel and your faith. Subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to Bold and Blunt and my very special guest, straight from London, Robert Oulds. Thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt, Robert. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Glad to be on.
So tell me first, what is the Bruges Group?
The Bruges Group's a think tank. We were founded in 1989. It was formed following a speech by Margaret Thatcher, then Britain's Prime Minister, where she was setting out an alternative vision where Britain wouldn't be run by the European Union, where the EU wouldn't be centralising and taking powers away from nation states with these regulations, imposing regulations on countries, imposing its rules, but basically destroying the freedom that she had built up. Hard-won battles, political battles for freedom in Britain, dismantling the state, dismantling how the state was interfering with economic matters, and then the EU was coming in and imposing more controls, restricting economic growth. And she was saying that Europe shouldn't be closed, it shouldn't be insular, it should be free and open to the rest of the world. There shouldn't be a fortress Europe, but it should be a collection of nation states, democratic, free nation states. That was her vision, and that's really what basically led to Brexit. That transformed opinion in the UK, and the Bruges Group was founded. Margaret Thatcher became our president, and we are there to carry her ideas forward, carry her principles to British people and, of course, other people in Europe and around the world, and really advocate Thatcherism and how nation states should be the key players in the world, not these supranational institutions that overrule democracy.
So would it be simplifying to say that the Bruges Group's basic mission is also to advance the idea of individualism over collectivism?
Absolutely, yes, indeed. It's individual initiative, incentive, and individuals having the right to express themselves and partake in society, negotiate contracts and agreements themselves, sell their labour or goods and services as they see fit, which drives economic growth. The state just often comes in. Of course, the state is increasingly being replaced by institutions that even sit above national governments. They're now controlling and really removing individual freedom, quite often freedom of speech as well. And the Bruges Group, yes, that is a central part of our mission. That's one of the key components of Thatcherism and conservatism as we now understand it.
That being said, because you are overseas, you're in the United Kingdom right now as we speak, correct?
That's right, in London, UK, yeah, England.
Okay, so that being said, how is the look from London on individual rights in this age of coronavirus clampdowns? How's it going overseas?
Britain started off the corona epidemic, the pandemic, really sort of wanting to protect freedom and the economy at all costs. Unfortunately, Boris Johnson, Britain's Prime Minister, quickly gave way, largely due to political and media pressure, and imposed a series of lockdowns which were of arguable efficacy. Some people, of course, also question the ethics of this whole process. Really hasn't... Some people question whether it really did slow the virus. Other people argue that it did. But now we're pretty much beyond that. We still have a system where the government could impose controls, but the vaccine program is very advanced in the UK, and of course is not compulsory. It's, although there's a lot of pressure on people to have vaccines, that's more social pressure than state pressure. Those who value freedom have fought back. There were times when people were worried that Boris Johnson would be going down the statist path and restricting freedom, and of course having big government solutions to problems the government had itself created. It seems that from his latest reshuffle, because he's really changed who's in government. That's the choice of the Prime Minister in the UK. It seems that he's actually realised that if he's going to remain popular, if the Conservative Party is going to remain popular and indeed win over new supporters as it's done recently, it needs to be culturally conservative and it needs to be pro-freedom. So the government has dropped the ideas for vaccine passports, mandating that people, only vaccinated people can go into a restaurant, and he's rolled back on demanding that people wear masks. It's now up to sort of private providers to make, or indeed some cases public providers, to make those decisions. So freedom, to a degree, has won out in the UK. But unfortunately in America, I can see that it's not winning at this point in time. The people may want it, but the elites are really governing themselves and governing other people and not responding to what people want, and people just wanting to be able to get on with their lives. Basically in Britain, it seems that we've turned the corner and we've managed to have a situation where, we are going to be moving beyond this pandemic, and of course we're just going to have to learn to live with COVID-19. Unfortunately, some won't make it, but really the country needs to get back, and that's what's happening in Britain at the moment. So Boris is doing the right thing, finally.
Finally. It's funny because I was listening to you talk. I was thinking, well, that's great news for you guys. But here in America, it's dark times for people who love liberty. These Democrats over here in America are a little more than socialists, and they're basically embracing a communist, Marxist, collectivist type of ideology. And Boris Johnson, it's funny because I used to think, reading about him from overseas here, that he was freedom minded. And then when he got the coronavirus himself, it seemed like he turned a corner and wanted to clamp down. So that's good. He's releasing his grip on citizens.
Well, it's really, Boris Johnson is part of this internationalist class. He himself was born in New York. That's he wouldn't be particularly different from many other politicians, but Britain is a country that voted for Brexit against what the establishment wanted, and when they tried to stop it, we fought back. I think Boris has realised from the opinion polls that if he's going to remain popular, if he's going to win future elections, then he needs to be more culturally conservative and value freedom. So it's not necessarily that Boris is on our side. He realised there's no choice. Democracy, thankfully, is still functioning in the UK, whereas in America, it quite clearly isn't. We're sort of learning a lot about America at the moment, and how particularly the Democrats are undermining freedom. And I would say it's not so much that the Democrats are bad people, it's more that bad people become Democrats. Not in all cases, but there's a certain type of mindset where people want to call out others. There's something suspect about them, and they find it easier to point their finger at other people and question their morality or their motives and their character, or even their mental health if they hold a different opinion. And there's a type of people which are collectivist mindset, and they may either become a fascist, a Nazi, or a communist, or in some cases a big tech entrepreneur or a Democrat politician, where they believe that they must control other people, that they know best. And a lot of it is linked to class. They look on ordinary working class and middle class people as the great unwashed, that somehow they are unclean. That's why Barack Obama at his party, well, they were all fine because they were sort of sophisticated people. They were the upper classes, and they could parade and be open because they are the privileged few and they are better than us, whereas other people are somehow carrying disease. It is really a very prejudiced and class-based and sort of almost a neo-feudal attitude, and that's what they want. They want people to be kept in their place, and that's really partly what's driving a lot of the green ideology, it's about restricting ordinary people's access to material wealth and enjoying things that were the preserve of the privileged few, the super wealthy. That's what's driving a lot of this green ideology. It's about keeping ordinary people, and this is what they didn't like about Margaret Thatcher in Britain or Ronald Reagan in America, is that she and Ronald Reagan in the United States gave the opportunity for ordinary people to better themselves, to what you would call the American dream, but to enjoy the material benefits of life and pass on those benefits to their family. They didn't like Margaret Thatcher in the UK because she gave working class people the opportunity to own their own home and not be dominated by the state, to give them autonomy over themselves, to make decisions for themselves and their families as they saw best, keep more of their money and spend it wisely. And when you grant people freedom, they usually make better choices than somebody from up on high in an ivory tower making decisions for them. That's one reason why socialism continually fails, but that's what they don't like about the modern Republican Party, because it is appealing to working class people who want to benefit their own lives and get material benefits for themselves and their families. And the Conservative Party is now becoming the working class party, but that's not because it's socialist, because it's the actual antithesis of socialism, cultural conservatism and individual liberty, and that's what people want, and that's what we need to protect.
And Robert, you're not just speaking off the cuff, because you spent some time, considerable time, doing the research to back what you just outlined with facts in your new book. And how do you pronounce that title? Is it moralitis? Is it morality?
Yes, it's moralitis.
Okay.
It's called moralitis, a cultural virus. And this is what's driving this problem, this attack on freedom. There's a virus that's been circulating. It's been going around the public, infecting people. Some people are deliberately spreading it. Other people are just carriers. And this virus we've named moralitis. It's a conceptual virus. It's a pathogen of the mind. It infects people's brains. It takes away their autonomy, and then they start to parrot things which would make seemingly no sense to ordinary people, but it makes them feel that they're somehow sophisticated. And it was originally started by what was known as the cultural Marxists, the Frankfurt School. They had observed that for some reason, which they couldn't at first understand, is that working class people, middle class people, they didn't embrace communism. And that was a shock to communists in the 1920s and other communist theorists going forward. And they realized that the reason being was that people were wedded to their faith, their family, and their flag. And they put out ideas which have continually and systematically attacked the faith, family, and flag, and try to undermine those key institutions which are the bedrock of society, the reason why the West, as we call it, Britain and America, became such great nations and did enjoy freedom and prosperity. And they do this to create trouble, to create disharmony, and to have some kind of turn what they would deem to be disadvantaged groups into a revolutionary force. And also there's it got worse in the 1960s when there was a synthesis of Marx and Freud's ideas, which of course bunkum, and they were absolutely, they are not credible as Freud and Marx are not credible as psychoanalysts or indeed as economists or sociologists. But these ideas have taken hold, and they infect different aspects. And this is where critical race theory comes out of. It's all an attempt to undermine things which we hold dear and that are the bedrock of society and make countries function successfully and economies work productively and make people happy and content. They wanted to destroy all that, and so they put this virus out there, these ideas. The virus is actually a set of ideas and it works to attack those institutions. And some people have been badly infected, particularly in the Democrat Party, because part of the symptoms of it is that you develop Brexit derangement syndrome or Trump derangement syndrome. You become a character where you're continually pointing the finger at other people and calling them out and questioning them, all to try and make yourself seem better. And part of this is because we've replaced material currency with moral currency. Some people just do this. Some people, of course, do it because they want to smash the institutions. Other people do it because they want to look good. It is the new intolerance. They do this because they think they're sophisticated. If they become woke, be that General Milley or some politician or someone at MSNBC or Jeff Bezos, for instance, if they become woke, they then think that they look sophisticated. But it's a typical, the emperor has no clothes. It's just what people say to try and get on in life, in some cases, other people, because it makes them think that they're better than ordinary working class people that may have voted for Brexit in the UK or Donald Trump in America, as I'm sure they did massively on 3rd of November 2020. So that's what's going on, and we found out that this virus, this cultural virus, is at work, and we know what's now driving these problems. The biggest problem isn't, I would argue, COVID-19. The problem is moralitis, because if that is allowed to infect, then of course, and take hold of a society, then that's what leads to eventually to more government control, more state control, ultimately socialism and communism, and that has killed far more people than COVID-19 ever will.
I think that's a very clever and insightful way of summarizing the attacks that are going on in the free worlds now, faith, family, and flag. That pretty much sums it up. And our time grows tight, but I just want to ask you this one final question. In the release that was sent to me about your excellent sounding book, Moralitis, is this line: the book contains much about the psychology of extremist environmentalist protesters and how these woke movements, including Black Lives Matter and political transgenderism, are all part of the same mental malady. Could you kind of explain a little bit more on that point to summarize our Bold and Blunt interview?
People who are woke, deep down they know it doesn't make sense, but they feel they have to say this to get on and to make themselves seem sophisticated. They have to show that they are the moral ones, that somehow they're better, that they know better. And they take positions which are seemingly absurd, but the more absurd it is, that actually gives them more kudos points, because only someone who had been to Harvard or Yale would say things which are so ridiculous. Only someone who can afford the damage to society that would be okay, that live in a gated community, would be able to trash society because they would be immune from the consequences of what they do. And so they can damage the family, they can damage the country and think that they're ever so clever for doing so. And it's ordinary people that would pay the price. They can damage the economy by making us invest in so-called renewables, which are nothing of the sort, and need massive subsidies just to break even. And even then, they have trouble feeding enough energy into the system. It is really just a way of people showing off and imposing giving them the opportunity to impose their will on other people. They can look down on others and think that somehow they're better. In a sense, it's a secular religion. Religion had been tried and tested. Christianity was developed through rational thinking and debate. This wokeism is a type of religion, but it's one that was developed through intolerance and restricting other opinions and stopping debate, making sure that others can take away other people's freedom of speech. And so what we now can see is that rather than tried and tested religions that have stood the test of time and been a benefit to society and enabled great countries to emerge and take their visions to the rest of the world for the benefit of humanity, this woke religion is about intolerance. But it's a religious mania that's driving it, a secular religious mania, and this is what happens. This is what happens in atheist states, be that the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, which had no regard for traditional religious values. This woke religion is indeed taking over, but I think it will fail because it's not based on facts. It is based on intolerance, it is based on repression, and it is against what people's deep wishes are. People ultimately want to have a family, they want to value their country, and they value their traditional morality and their traditional religion as well, and don't want to see it torn down. Most people are like that. It's only an intolerant few which have clustered around the Democrat Party and the few social institutions that are driving this intolerance, and ultimately it will fail because it's not bound in sound economics, and it goes against biology as well. Most people are either a man or a woman. That's the reality, and to create 100 different genders, I think they might be up to 200 by now, is against what people want, is against human nature, and ultimately it will fail. The question is just how much of a mess will they leave behind, and how much damage will they do to countries like the United States, and the only winner from that will be China. And I would urge people in America to turn their backs on woke politics as soon as possible before China becomes preeminent in the world, because that will offer a very dark future, one that we cannot indeed countenance. We see how China is repressing freedom, and some people, the tech giants, I think they actually like that because they can see how a people can be controlled, but that does not bode well. Those countries who value individual freedom, private enterprise, initiative, independence, they are the countries that will succeed. They will prosper. But first of all, we have to defeat woke politics. Otherwise, it will leave a giant mess behind, and the result of that will be intolerant ideologies will win and cause untold damage, and we will really be regretting what's happened. I think ultimately we will win, but of course the question is we need to win quickly before other countries can wreak more havoc on our freedom.
I think you nailed it. And, there's a lot there to unpack. But I guess I'll just finish with this note of optimism, telling on what you just said, that we will win it. Because I agree with you, we will win in the end, because pride goes before the fall, right? And it's all about arrogance and secularism and elitism and the pride of some on the left who think they know best for the many in the sane world. Where can people get your book, Robert?
Well, they can get the book Moralitis, A Cultural Virus from Barnes and Noble. They can get it online or from Amazon indeed. We still have to sell via them, although we might question what Jeff Bezos does. It's still an important means, and if they're going to be selling our book and making sure that other people can be knowledgeable about the danger that woke politics faces and how this moralitis virus can be tackled, then so be it. They can get it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble in the United States. So the book is Moralitis, A Cultural Virus, and I really do think that we should inoculate the population against this virus. That's the one we should be vaccinating against. We need to be making sure that our schools are inoculating children against the dangers of moralitis, because ultimately it will lead to communist ideology, which will be absolutely tragic. So that's where we need to be inoculating children, not on anything else, unless it be the flu. But it's that virus that is the one that we need to tackle first of all.
That's the bigger danger. I agree. Well, Robert Oulds, director of the Bruges Group and author of the new Moralitis, a Cultural Virus, which I hope everybody goes out and gets a copy right now. I want to thank you for being on Bold and Blunt. You're a fascinating guy, and I really enjoyed chatting with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
There we have it. Another Bold and Blunt podcast. Another great discussion with another great guest. For Bold and Blunt, go to Edify, EDIFI, and check out all the faith-based podcasts there to help you get through these dark times. And don't forget to sign up for Bold and Blunt at Edify or at the Washington Times. You can get it delivered straight to your email box 3 times a week by subscribing to my Washington Times newsletter. You can get the digital edition of the Washington Times delivered directly to your email box 3 times a week, going to washingtontimes.com/Cheryl. And it's a 50% discount now for a year's worth of all the Washington Times offers on its digital platform. But you know what? In the end, there are 2 things that will help you fight the far left in this country. Number 1, being blunt. Number 2, being bold. There you have it. Root it in God, and you will be a powerful force against the far left. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.